Welcome to Insights from the Couch, where real conversations meet real life at midlife.
We're Colette and Laura, two therapists and best friends, walking through the journey right alongside you. Whether you're feeling stuck, restless, or just unsure of what's next, this is a space for honest conversations, messy truths, and meaningful change.
And our Midlife Masterclass is now open. If you're looking to level up, get into action, and make midlife the best season yet, go to insightsfromthecouch.org and join our waitlist. Now let's dive in.
Hi guys, welcome back to Insights from the Couch. We are without Colette today. She is knee deep in book touring and all that goes with that. But we're going to do a health one today I'm really excited about. I have Renee Fitton from Prolon with us. Renee is a leader at the intersection of nutrition, healthcare, and education. She is the VP of growth at Prolon, which we're going to tell you all about today. She shapes strategies, equips healthcare practitioners with cutting-edge insights into nutrition and longevity. Her expertise is in evidence-based practices and nutritional science and has made her a trusted authority. Renee is dedicated to advancing the role of nutrition and revolutionizing healthcare, blending scientific rigor with a compassionate approach to wellness. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to dig into some of my favorite topics in the world of nutrition and longevity. So I hope we get some new information out to your listeners. I think nutrition can get a little stale, for lack of a better word, or overwhelming.
So,
yeah.
You know, that's the thing I think about this age is like, I think at one point, middle-aged women were not marketed to at all. We were like sort of forgotten about. And now we're like marketed to within an inch of our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like my clients are like the ones that care about their health are like, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing now? What supplement am I supposed to be taking? And they're exhausted.
Right. And everyone thinks they need to, at this point, have like an entire closet full of supplements because to keep track with all of the collagen, creatine, and that's just the C's, like gotta go through the alphabet. So,
and it's like at some point you just like want to do nothing, but like go sit and eat a bag of chips. But
yeah.
So tell for our listeners who maybe do not know about Prolon, tell us what is Prolon.
Yeah. So Prolon it's actually the name of a company, but we're most known for the 5-day fasting mimicking diet. So it is, and it's kind of what it sounds like. It is a 5-day protocol that gives you everything you need: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack, real meals, all plant-based. But here's the catch. It is designed, the food that you are eating is designed to make your body believe that you are in a water-only fast. So as if you were eating nothing at all, but yet you are eating full meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. This is based off of about 30 years of science trying to figure out the true definition of fasting that our cells, that our body believes. And we're able to essentially kind of hack the system and let us have incredible, nutritious food that makes it easier, safer to get the benefits of water-only fasting.
Yeah. And I was talking to my mom about water-only fasting. And I said, yeah, there's this guy named Dr. Alan Goldhammer who has this place called True North where he like will water fast people for like 100 days to help their bodies cure from like, type 2 diabetes and all sorts of disease. And she was like, no, Laura, no, that's not true. Like that doesn't happen. Nobody can survive that. But like water only fasting is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really exists, right? It's an incredible healing thing for the body if you really need it.
Yeah. And there are some, and granted, I'm not a big proponent of really long water only fasts because of the science that we now have with fasting mimicking and the incredible potential that it has and the fact that you can do it with nutrition. But that being said, there are reports of people water only fasting for like over a year.
That's
and
insane.
granted, these are individuals like that example that I just shared of somebody doing it for about a year or so. That person was, I believe, like nearly 400 pounds. So when we go into these really, really, really long water only fasts, our body it has to get energy from somewhere. And you need to have enough stores of energy in your body to accommodate that long of a fast. For, a generally healthy individual that doesn't really have a lot of weight to lose, you can still get incredible benefits from water only fasting. And it's recommended that you only do it for about, 5 days or so, maybe 3 to 4 times a year. So a very reasonable length of time.
Yeah. Like the average healthy person does not, these are for like sick people or very like obese people that need a high level of support. But what you're saying is that in this 5-day fasting mimicking diet, which is the one that Walter Longo came up with, that he is the brainchild of Prolon, right?
Yeah, he's the founder and original researcher and also my mentor. So big fan.
Yeah, his work's amazing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's really the underpinning of longevity nutrition research right now. He's generally recognized as the leader in longevity nutrition research, even outside of fasting mimicking alone, just because of the work that he's done, even with the longevity diet, everyday nutrition strategies. So yeah, he's a big guy, big name.
Yeah. And I feel like the longevity space is a little murky right now, just with like everything. I don't know, Peter Attia and like the Epstein files and like the bros on the internet that I feel like, and this is like maybe for a little bit later in our discussion, but I just feel like it's so much like protein focus and so much like muscle building. And those are all the messages we're getting at midlife, and I think there's a lot to that. Mm-hmm. But I've come up maybe similarly to you in the plant-based world.
Yes.
And I still rings in my head, like Caldwell Esselstyn saying that like, you're not going to die of heart disease if you can keep total cholesterol like under 150.
Yeah. And
like, you can't do that with like all this animal protein that we're loading into our bodies. But like, let's put a pin in that because that's like a whole rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, we could talk for days about this, and I have plenty to say. Let me tell you.
But it's not in right now. It's not in.
No, it's really not. I mean, what's in right now are the Gabrielle Lyons of the world talking about the 1 gram per pound, and I think it's very honestly dangerous to be really excessively touting all of this protein mania, because we also know that excessive protein is very important, by the way.
Yes.
It is critical for our health and wellness and nutrition. And no dietitian, plant-based or otherwise, will tell you to exclude protein or be on a very, very, very low protein diet unless for very important reasons, maybe some health conditions that they would make that recommendation. But for the average individual, what the recommendation is adequate protein. And I think that that's really like when I'm saying, oh no, we don't need 1 gram per pound of protein, like some of the kind of big protein proponents are saying, I'm not saying you should go low protein. I'm saying adequate. And it's something that has like become so bad about adequate protein. And
what is adequate protein in your mind?
So the general recommendation is usually about 0.8 grams per kilogram. Now, I would actually even say, and this is not Walter's recommendation, this is my recommendation, that for individuals who are doing weight-bearing exercise, that are doing adequate exercise, and again, that weight-bearing exercise is very important, we probably want to bump that up a little bit. We want to build muscle. But the absolute most that you would really need, even if you were doing a ton of weight-bearing exercise, is probably closer to 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram, which is still like almost half of what the gram per pound recommendation is.
Yeah, I feel like they're even over a gram per pound these days.
Oh, yeah.
And I listened to one of Gabrielle Lyons' like breakfasts, and I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, how do you eat that?
It's, you're starting your day with 50 grams of protein. And like, to me, it's outrageous. But more importantly, dangerous because, and this is where I really want to stress the importance here, is that yes, animal protein is one of the fastest ways to grow your muscle. Yes, because it is very growth promoting. Yes, I'm not going to deny that. But those growth promoting amino acids, the building blocks of that, are also promoting growth all over your body. And that is also why we see increased levels of cancer and cell replication that are sometimes to dangerous levels with excess consumption, especially of animal proteins. And so you're really having to weigh the risk. And that's why too much of anything is inevitably kind of a bad thing. And protein is not exempt from that rule. And so, yes, make sure that you are having adequate protein. But in our world today, most people are having adequate protein. The place that people are getting into trouble is that they're over consuming all of these refined grains. And it's like, I think that the where the protein people are kind of coming at this is like, maybe if we eat enough protein, it'll kind of move those refined grains out of the palate, out of the diet, because you just won't have room for it because you're going to be so focused on protein. But is that really the solution? Or is the solution that we are more mindful about the plate that we create and that we have a balanced plate?
And what we're really deficient in as the American culture is like fiber, right?
Yes.
Like people are just not eating fiber, which is just like plants and vegetables and fruit where you're getting all these micronutrients, right? And this is where we're so deficient. And so that's like the foundation of health and wellness. And I would think that Walter Longo's longevity diet really supports that. And his sources of protein, does he fall in a camp on sources of protein? Like, is he okay with like salmon and things like that? Or
so he does actually include some fish in his protocol. And that's because he's a big proponent of omega-3s and a lot of healthy fats. But he's otherwise quite plant-based. So I would call it pescatarian, but I almost sometimes call it pesca-vegan because he's also limiting dairy and eggs and things like that. So it is quite plant-based leaning, but you know, like people who are big proponents of the longevity diet and the dietitians that are promoting this are also just helping steer people closer to that. You know, it doesn't have to be, as with anything in nutrition, so black and white, like, oh, you can never have XYZ thing. It's really just, this is kind of our gold standard that we're aiming for, and we're going to try and get as close to this as we can most days.
Yeah. And like whole food, right? Just like start there. If you can't start anywhere, start there. But I just think it does bear repeating that culturally, we're not in a moment where these voices, they should be front and center. I think they were about 5 to 7 years ago, but suddenly we're in this moment of, like load yourself down with like as much protein as you can. And that's just not really like great for longevity.
No,
right.
It's really not.
So let's go back to like this, to Prolon and like its role and how this can really help somebody as a tool in their health journey.
For sure. So it's kind of a fun little offshoot from what we were just talking about, because what the body is really cool in that it does kind of pick its area of focus at any given time. It's either focusing on build, grow, which is what we do when we have a lot of nutrients, especially protein and sugars. And when we don't have a lot of those proteins and sugars, our body actually shifts from grow to repair, clean up, rejuvenate. And so when we go into these fasted states or fasting mimicking states, we are allowing our body to shift into this repair and rejuvenation state. What is really cool is that there's actually a process that is turned on when we fast for about this 3-day mark. And that's something called autophagy. It literally means self-eating. It is our body's ability to go in and hunt down the things that aren't working so well, that have built up junk over time. And, it doesn't matter how healthy you are. Everybody has to take out the trash at some point. You are going to accumulate little broken down cellular components, and you need to eat them up, get rid of them, and replace them. And that is what's happening when we go into these fasting mimicking protocols. We allow this deep cleanup at the cellular level. And given that our whole body is made up of cells, when we clean up our cells, so many things can improve. And that's what we see. There's now, and I'm going to focus specifically on the research on fasting mimicking because that's my area of expertise, but there are now about 48 clinical trials across so many different health conditions showing benefits of this deep cellular cleanup and all of the wonderful metabolic changes that happen as well along with this protocol. So we see people are reversing type 2 diabetes in as little of 5 days a month, about once a month for 6 months. That's it.
That's
Reversal
crazy.
type 2 diabetes. We see improvements in skin health. So significant improvements in fine lines, skin hydration, skin texture. We see improvements in biological age. We see improvements all of the things that your doctor is going to test, your cholesterol, your blood pressure, your triglycerides, your blood sugar, all of those things that you're getting tested on an annual basis, hopefully, are also being impacted here. So not to mention, and I like to leave this one for last because it really is kind of a cherry on top, weight management.
Yeah.
But the beauty of what we see with fasting mimicking specifically, and I will specifically distinguish this one from water only fasting, is that we see that it is fat-focused weight loss, meaning it's targeting fat, it's targeting the fat that we want to get rid of, and it's protecting our muscle. So this is where, me and Gabrielle Lyons do align. Muscle is so important for health and wellness and longevity. And so we want to protect it as best that we can. And through fasting mimicking protocols, we see that there is that muscle protection with
How long does it last? So you do the 5 days, you get the bounce, right? Like autophagy has occurred, your systems have reset, maybe you burned a little fat. So I go back to eating. I'm hoping that maybe I'm onboarding into a cleaner version of, I'm assuming that's what you do, right? Hopefully you don't just go back to a standard American diet after you've done all this beautiful work. But how long are we seeing the tail of the fasting mimicking diet last in the system?
So this is a really important question. And I actually have a bunch of little things to say about this. One being that in the studies, and this is important because this is not necessarily what happens in real life, but in the studies, the individuals were told to resume the standard American diet. Go back to eating whatever the heck you want. You don't need to change your diet, because we really just wanted to see what was the fasting mimicking diet doing all by itself, even if that's all you did, and then you went back to a standard nutrition. And they still saw that after 3 months of completing, this is the 3 cycles, which is the recommended kind of starting point. You do once a month for 3 months. So 5 days a month for 3 months. 3 months later, after standard nutrition in between those cycles and for 3 months, they still saw anywhere from 70 to 80% of the results maintained. And so that's why the recommendation is every 3 to 4 months, you'll do your top up, and it kind of fills up the tank back up to 100%. And then you're just kind of staying on that cadence. Some people will do it more frequently just because they feel so good, or they are maybe indulging a little bit more in between. But generally speaking, what we do see, and this was the other kind of note and caveat that I wanted to make, is that studies have also shown that individuals, after completing even just one cycle, have a better relationship with food, have less sugar cravings, have are more able to make other healthy lifestyle changes, including, by the way, increased physical activity. So it's pretty cool that this 5-day change is not just giving you kind of all of these lab marker improvements and weight management improvements, but also behavioral improvements that help you make changes to every other day of the year that you're not doing this protocol.
So I'm assuming working there and being attached to the research and everything, how have you integrated it into your life? And I just want to kind of hear about your experience with doing this? How hard or easy? Has it gotten easier over time?
Yes.
Like,
so
just
I
curious
have done
on your
this 17 times. So I am no newbie to the world of fasting mimicking. I started fasting mimicking pretty much right when I heard about it. I was very lucky to study under Walter Longo and go to Italy and learn and soak up as much as I possibly could about this information. And then the moment you understand the science, it's like you can't not do it. And so then I started doing it anywhere from 3 to 4 times a year to as little as 2 times a year. It depended on how I was feeling, how I was able to just fit it into my life. But I'm currently at about a 3 times a year cadence. I do find that it gets easier, but every now and again, I'll get one tough round where it's like, oh, that was not my easiest. I was like ready to be done on day 3, but I have every single time made it through all 5 days. I can say with certainty that for me, day 2 and or 3 are the toughest, and day 4 and 5 are usually a breeze. You get over the hump and you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. And, now I've only got 1 or 2 days left and it's pretty easy to finish. One of my biggest learnings is that even though I am more of like a 14-hour intermittent faster on a regular day, when I do my FMDs, or my fasting mimicking diets, I will spread out the food as much as I can. I'm trying to
make it last.
I just make everything last and have little snacks throughout the day as much as I can. That usually really helps. I try and always have either my husband or one of my best friends or somebody do it with me. It makes it so much more fun. And I'm very lucky that I'm in an ecosystem where there's a lot of people that are doing the fasting mimicking. So I can usually hunt down one person to do it at the same time as me. But, there's tons of tips and tricks. I could probably spend 45 minutes talking about all of the things that I've done to make it easier, but I won't keep you guys.
It does help to have people around you. You want somebody in the kitchen, like cooking a meal while you're drinking like herbal tea. Like what is the food? I watched one of your videos where it was like soup packets you were making, and I'm like, is it food? Is it like, what are you really eating on this?
Yeah. So very importantly, this is food and real food. And actually the newest version, I've done this one the last 2 times I've done it, is fully organic, ready to eat soups that you just open and pour.
I love that.
It does honestly kind of have a little bit of an astronaut food feel, but it is designed by a Michelin chef. It is really quite tasty. You're getting things like nut and seed crackers, you're getting nut bars, you're getting olives, you're getting the soups for lunch and for dinners. There's different flavors throughout the week, so you're not getting bored. You're having enough variety in there. There's also kits where they also change the bar flavor, the nut bar flavor. Maybe it's macadamia coconut, maybe it's chocolate chip. I mean, yes, you can eat. There's even chocolate in this. There's at the end of the day a little dessert like quinoa crisp with chocolate, which I kid you not, people are clamoring for. I bring them to conferences sometimes because we don't sell them separately, but I'll have like a bowl of them and people are like, can I take 5 or 6? They're so good. They're so good.
Okay.
Yeah, real food.
And then what do you notice like after you do this? Like what have you noticed anecdotally in your own body and just like how you feel?
Yeah. Well, and I've gotten pretty good at this point in knowing pretty much exactly when it's time for my next round, because I'll notice one of the biggest things that will change for me is my skin health. And not just even on my face, but like I get these little like kind of bumps on the back of my arm.
Yeah.
I think that it's maybe a little autoimmune type something going on there. And after I do my 5 days, clear.
So
redness gone, the little bumps disappear. That's one of the biggest ones that I notice. Another one that I notice, again, I'm doing this truly just for optimization at this point, and I'll still notice drastic improvement in mental clarity, alertness, energy. I wear an Oura ring. I'll notice my sleep habits are drastically improved, like very notably improved, even during the 5 day, but certainly after. So it's quite impressive. I have in the last like probably 15 rounds not weighed myself, but I do feel like through the 5 days, I keep exercise really limited. And when I hit the gym afterwards, I feel so much stronger. Like I can just crush through a really intense solid core workout and be like doing the hardest level, which usually I'd pick like middle level, you know? So
That's interesting.
It's really quite impactful.
I mean, that brings up another point. Like when you're doing this, do you have to go into like low power mode for 5 days? I mean, can you work out and work with the same vigor, or do you have to kind of baby yourself?
Definitely not baby myself, but I do have to pull back the throttle on my workout routine. Like I'm a girl who goes to Barry's boot camp and I'm doing like really intense running and lifting on most days. And I'm not doing that for these 5 days. So that's where I pull back a little bit. But I am, if anything, working harder than ever. Like I will always plan my 5 days on a Sunday through Thursday, because I like to be really, and the day one is always a breeze. Like it's barely a fasting day. Days 2 through 5, those are your fasting days. And I love for those to be on my work week because I'm busy, I'm distracted, I'm working on other things, and I'm absolutely able to do those things. My most recent round I did just this past December at a conference. So I was running around the conference floor all day, every day, and it was awesome. It's great.
Yeah, a little distraction might not be the worst thing.
Really, really is. And we have doctors and nurses and, a lot of people doing this on their feet a lot for the day. And, they find it seamless.
So, okay, is there anybody that this is not for? I mean, like eating disordered, recovery people, like are there people that it's like, no, don't go near this?
Yes. So anybody who's currently pregnant, breastfeeding, history of eating disorder, anybody who has any sort of muscle wasting, sarcopenia, or even if you're just really, really low weight, the cutoff that they use is BMI of 18.5. I don't love that cutoff because you can be really tall and slim and have good muscle and still fall under that 18.5 BMI, and you would be fine to do it. But that's why I like to use more of that muscle wasting. If you know that right now your goal is building muscle, don't focus on a fasting mimicking protocol. Anybody who has a late stage health condition should speak, of course, to their healthcare practitioners. Right. But that being said, I would also urge anybody, if you're like, I wonder what the fasting mimicking diet can do for XYZ, just go into Google and type that in, and a bunch of PubMed articles, I guarantee, will come up. I have to be cautious about my making recommendations. So that's why I always send people to
do
PubMed.
Their own research. Okay.
But it's out there. There's tons of research and it's really cool what it can do. So, yeah.
And I'm imagining, just because I've I was reading the thing about autophagy and how it can really impact stem cells. Is this great for cancer survivors?
Yeah. So again, with Prolon, we can't make any recommendations around cancer. But what I can say is that there's over a dozen clinical trials of the fasting mimicking diet and cancer. They do use a slightly adapted version of the fasting mimicking diet. It is designed by L-Nutra, the parent organization of Prolon. But it is a little different, just specifically designed for individuals with cancer. So anybody who is leveraging fasting mimicking for cancer, I usually direct them until L-Nutra designs a program for this, which actually it is underway. Direct them to a nonprofit called Create Cures. And Create Cures helps individuals who either are currently struggling with cancer or are cancer survivors looking to incorporate fasting mimicking to support their longevity, their health, their wellness, etc. And they pair fasting mimicking with dietitian support, with biochemistry support, all of this additional support to make it really safe. And it's a fabulous cause and organization. So
I love that.
Would look into that for sure. And Walter actually just recently published a new book called Fasting Cancer. And it talks about how to leverage not even just the fasting mimicking diet, but also everyday diet to support cancer, both recovery and preventions.
That's an amazing resource for anybody who's interested in that.
Yeah.
I love all of this. So when you come off, I just want to like kind of get the overview, because I know people are hearing about, you know, intermittent fasting, time restricted eating. I think people are incredibly confused on that. So when you're not doing Prolon, like how do you incorporate some of those principles into just your life?
So outside of just about 3 cycles of fasting mimicking, my everyday, and this is a general recommendation for most healthy individuals, is to follow a circadian fast. Now, this is not what you might think. It is not like we're saying fast for 16, 18, et cetera hours, which is generally what people think of when they think of intermittent fasting. The intermittent fasting that I recommend and that Walter recommends is a 12-hour fast. So this is something, believe it or not, most people are not doing this. It sounds like, oh, that's not even a fast. But that most people are eating pretty much around the clock from the moment they wake up until the moment they go to bed. And what we really want to see is essentially following the sunlight. The moment the sun comes up, that's when you are having your first meal. And when the sun goes down, that's when you're having your last. So what that typically looks like, and that's not always going to be, you're not going to be able to follow the sun all of the time. So usually what that looks like is you want to eat your first meal within an hour of waking, and you want to stop eating within 3 hours of going to sleep. And so a lot of people, when they think about intermittent fasting, they think about skipping breakfast and waiting as long as they can to have their first meal. And in the way that our body works, it actually, all of our cells follow their own little clocks, actually. And they work really well at certain times of the day, and they don't work as well at different times of the day. And when it comes to managing our blood sugar, our body does the best at doing that in the morning, and it doesn't do so good at it in the evening. And so that's why you really do want to, if possible, front load your intermittent fasting and not make it so long as to create additional stress. So that would look like, again, starting your meals at within an hour of waking and discontinuing about 3 hours before bed within a 12-hour window.
That's so gentle. I love that approach. Now, I think a lot of women are like, I'm not hungry in the morning, or they think it's like there's something virtuous about trying to push it to lunch. But I mean, that's not a great plan.
It's not. And especially for women, because we are especially sensitive to cortisol in the morning. Yeah. What happens, and this is our body being incredibly intelligent, when we wake up, our cortisol or stress hormones increase, and it helps us get out of bed, get active, get our day on the road, you know? But what it's also doing is it's staying high to tell us, hey, go get food. Hey, go get food. And if we continuously, and what we can learn is to suppress that. So if you go long enough without having breakfast, you eventually think, nah, I don't need that. But what is still happening is this increased cortisol. So your body is remaining in this stressed state for a long period of time until you consume food. And that's chronic stress on your body, and it can lead to a lot of negative downstream effects. So it's really not ideal to be skipping breakfast, even if you're like, I'm just not a breakfast person.
It's called I'm a coffee person. Like I'm fueled on coffee and, you know, like going for hours without eating.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure, I mean, this is one that is all over social media, and I do have to agree with is, you know, the adding coffee to that morning fast is just making that worse. It's just increasing your cortisol.
More cortisol. Right.
So at least throw a banana in there, and I think you'd be in significant better shape. So
this is such a great tool. This is really good for women at midlife, I'm assuming.
Fasting mimicking especially, because in midlife, we start seeing declines in muscle. We start seeing declines in bone density. And this is all, of course, associated with the decline in estrogen, progesterone, et cetera, that happens in midlife. So what we need to make sure that we're doing if we are going to make a change to our nutrition is that whatever change we're making is not also potentially declining muscle, bone density, etc., which unfortunately for like general blanket calorie restriction diets, which is usually kind of where we lean towards when we start seeing the weight on the scale creep up and we start seeing, these things that make us think, oh man, I got to do something.
Right.
It's really important that we choose solutions that are holistically good for our bodies at this time. And that's why I love the fasting mimicking nutrition protocol, because it gives you a good kind of like push in the right direction without taking away some of these really critical parts of our body composition that we need to maintain. So
right. And that's something I'm sure you see as a nutritionist, is like that women like are all about weight management and calorie restriction. And then they end up like really screwed up metabolically because they're just not fueling a level of fitness or anything. And they're just like, why am I existing on, 800 calories a day, but like I'm gaining weight or the scale isn't moving. And it's like, that's a whole other conversation about really fueling the body.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like with this conversation of muscle protection, muscle is our most metabolically active tissue, or it's one of our most metabolically active tissues at bare minimum. And so the bigger they are, the higher your metabolism. And therefore you are better able to consume more food. It's just kind of like you're actually helping yourself, not need to be so calorie restricted. And so when you restrict calories, what ends up happening is you drop your muscle density because your body's like, well, we can't keep this muscle big and strong. We'll just pull from there. And then you're kind of creating this vicious cycle because now your metabolic rate has gone down and now you have to eat less and less and less and less to maintain the same. So it's really, it's really not ideal.
Yeah. We have to re-educate ourselves and we have to get in the weight room. That's the best thing I did was the weights, like 3 times a week. In the last few years is just really sticking to that. And it's been such a game changer. Yeah. But I want to try Prolon. I want to see if I can like make it through. I'm very dramatic about food. I'm very emotional about food.
You're gonna find that this is going to make you even more excited and more in love with the food that you love. It's like it's a beautiful thing to see how your relationship with food evolves and how you learn to really love certain things, and you realize like maybe some of these things I didn't like so much. Turns out I didn't need this like candy at the end of the night every night. Like, I actually don't even like that anymore. It's really interesting. So
okay, I'm here for that. I'm going to check it out. So tell us, like, where can people get access to Prolon? Where can they get access to more about you? Where can they find you?
Yeah. So if you want to connect with me, please find me on social media. That's probably the fastest way, at Fitton Nutrition. That's Fitton Nutrition. If you're curious to learn more about Prolon, I would check out the website prolonlife.com, Prolon life.com. I think we should also get a link for you guys where you can get some additional discounting. So we'll make sure to throw that into the show notes.
Yeah. I didn't even ask you what the cost was.
Yeah, it's actually quite reasonable. Because for 5 days you have all of your food and nutrition paid for with that cost, right? So keep in mind you're taking out your grocery bill for that week. It is anywhere full price between $199 to $299, depending on the box that you are getting. Okay. And then we'll have I believe like a 25% off discount code for everybody. And then there is also reduced pricing if you do a subscription. So the pricing is flexible, but the absolute most people are paying is like about $200 for a kit.
That's not bad. It's doable.
Very doable. Yes. And again, most people are, because food is so expensive these days.
I know.
It's kind of crazy. And so for 5 days, you're typically spending more than like $50 a day at this point. So especially if you're living in Los Angeles, New York, Miami, major cities, it's like crazy.
All right. Well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to report back to our audience on what it was really like for a dramatic eater to do this. But I'm excited because I think these are like game-changing tools. And, you sold me on the skincare piece, just the vanity alone. I'm like, okay.
Honestly, it works. Let me just tell you, I'm so excited. That's one thing that I always tell people to do is take a picture of your face on day 0 and take a picture of your face on day 6, and you will see inflammation even. That's not something that they did in the trial, but I see it in the pictures, the before and afters. It's pretty amazing. So do that too.
I love this. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with our audience. It's something a little different that we don't usually talk about, but I love this. And I'm so happy that we got to go deep on it. So thanks so much for being here. And we hope you guys got some insights from our couch today. Take care.